Hi everyone, and welcome to Deliberate Debating. Today we're going to be having a look at the first affirmative speaker, what the first affirmative speaker says, the order in which to say it, and how really to structure a good first affirmative speech. So, first let's have a look at some general information. The first affirmative speaker is the first person to speak from either teams. This means that they can fully prepare before the speech. They can know exactly what they want to say and they can prepare and practice it over and over again. It is really important as the first speaker that you know what the second speaker is planning on saying and that you do foreshadow this by outlining their key arguments. Communication is really important, and as the first speaker, you need to be really confident with what your team is going to be saying. Especially when we consider the team line and the team split. If you're not too sure what these things are, don't worry, we'll go through them later in the video. Outline of the speech. So, how a first affirmative speaker should begin is by defining the key terms. They then follow that up with introducing the team line, outlining the team split, and then really you get into your debate where you will elaborate and present your key and main arguments. Step number 1, defining the topic. Define the topic as a whole rather than as individual words. The adjudicators know what each of these individual words mean on their own. What they're really interested in is how your team has developed an approach and what the definition is. It's really important that you focus on the specifics which might be contentious or disagreed with. They need to know how specifically your team is taking this topic. Some individual keywords might need to be defined because occasionally there are words that can be interpreted in different ways. Make sure that you do define these. Keep in mind that the most logical definition is the best line to take. We don't want to have a debate where 90% of the debate is spent working out what the definition is. The most logical definition will be the one to win, and so you're best to take along that line. An example of a definition of the topic is, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, the affirmative team will be arguing that technology is harming and impacting on our relationships. Technology is ubiquitous and surrounds us all. Our team will be discussing how modern-day devices such as TV, phones, tablets, and the internet has increased societal, filial, and other relational problems in our world, and how these impacts have a significantly greater negative impact than a positive one." We can see here that the team is really defining the topic as that there is a greater negative impact than a positive one. They've also outlined and highlighted what they're defining technology to be, and this is the more common interpretation of the word technology. Step number 2, introducing the team line. The team line is essentially a contention or argument that all team members will be stating. It is not the identical same sentence or phrasing every time over. Each team member needs to work out their own individual way of stating this team line or contention. It is really logical in its basis. Here's an example. Technology does harm our relationships because it is addictive, dangerous, and disastrous to our world. So we can see here that the team line is really just their overall argument, their overall contention, and anything after because is the team line. You should really consider using a team line because it makes it clear to the audience what it is that your team is arguing. Step number 3, introducing the team split. So a team split is essentially thematically dividing arguments between the first two speakers, remembering that you don't need to worry about the third speaker because they will be focusing in on rebuttals. It's the logical and equitable distribution of arguments. So you need to sit down with your second affirmative speaker and talk about what will each of you be speaking about. The example that I have down here is the first affirmative will be speaking about the impact on children and teens, the impact of Facebook and social media, whereas the second speaker will be talking about the impact on adults, impact on TV, Netflix, and gaming. As the first speaker, you will be highlighting what the second speaker will be saying. So it is important that communication between you two is very, very clear and you each know what each other are going to be saying. Any changes need to be communicated to each other. So an example of a team split is, "Today, I will be arguing 2 points. Initially, how technology is impacting immensely on our children and teenage relationships. And secondly, how social media is certainly not social at all and should be limited greatly in its use. Our second speaker will be presenting how technology technology negatively impacts on the lives of adults and how TV, gaming, and streaming technologies have assisted in the deterioration of our social world. So, here I've outlined what I will be saying and what my next team member will be saying. Step number 4, presenting main arguments. So this is the section where you will be using paragraphs and your main arguments to outline why your team is correct. It's handy to use Teal as a guide, partly because it's a structure you should be familiar with, but partly because it also helps to guide what you say and how you say it. Don't forget that you'll be graded based on your matter, method, and manner. Okay, so it's really important that you have lots of research, lots of things backing up your arguments, that you are presenting it in an engaging and interesting way. Remember to use logos, ethos, and pathos in structuring and presenting your arguments. So here's an example of only part of a main argument, but just to give you an idea for what it will look like. Children are spending too much time using technology. A behind-the-news survey revealed that 56% of children spend 2 hours or more on technology outside of school hours. A whopping 10% admit to at least 4 hours in front of the screen. This number is consistently increasing as children grow, with research by the Longitudinal Study of Australian Children identifying that kids aged between 6 and 7 watch on average 150 minutes of TV each day, compared to the staggering 250 minutes of 12 to 13-year-olds. These statistics would not be so shocking if it were not for the long-lasting impacts with ever-increasing cases of mental health disorders, 20% according to a 2010 research, and behavioural problems, 15% according to a 2015 study. We cannot ignore this global catastrophe any longer. Technology is harming our children, our future, our world. We can see that I do need to elaborate more on my argument here, get into the nitty-gritties of it, but this is essentially what you need to be doing now. Don't forget to also conclude quickly before you end your debate. So, some final advice before you begin your speech. Number 1 is to know your content. Practice, 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 practice. The more you practice, the more confident you will be up there. You know your entire speech, so you should be able to say it verbatim with very few notes. Prepare for the rebuttals. Know the weak spots in your arguments and have rebuttals prepared for your second or third speaker. They'll need them and they'll love that you took the time to consider where are the weak spots in your arguments. Keep editing. If you've found weak spots, edit them, make them watertight. Make sure that the opposing team doesn't really have a chance to rebut your arguments, or if they do rebut them, it's based on tiny things that are not overall significant. When you're designing your cue cards, avoid full sentences, because if you avoid full sentences, it means that you will be maintaining eye contact with the audience more. Include only the topic sentences, statistics, names, or other crucial facts that you're worried you'll forget, but the sentence by sentences you should be able to say yourself. Good luck in your debate.